This episode of Sports on the Positive Tip is brought to you by the Tavern Coffee House. Attention, coffee lovers! Are you craving the perfect cup of coffee to start your day? Well, look no further than the Tavern Coffee House. It's located at 12302 Buckeye Road in Cleveland, Ohio. You can also check them out and order your coffee at thetaverncoffee.com. Hey there, everybody. This is Kenny and
Kenny Squared.
with us Sports on the Positive Tip podcast. Kenny, it seems like it's been a minute since we were together because we did that early show last week with the Knicks and all of the hoopla around there. We'll talk more about the Knicks a little bit with the draft, although it's kind of a little bit of a non-story. But there were some interesting things that happened in the draft. But I want to fire off about 4 different items before we get into the NBA. Just some stuff, what would normally be our opening, right? But some stuff that happened. In baseball, did you see this? How the Phillies scored 8 runs in the 9th inning when they had 2 outs and nobody on? I mean, that was unbelievable, right?
It's crazy how a comeback can happen like that, but especially with 2 outs and scoring 8 runs.
Yeah.
But like the Phillies have just been on this tear. I thought Bobby Thompson was a better manager, but maybe it's just that Donnie Baseball's the guy. I don't know.
I realized this, but I saw an interview with him for the Sunday night baseball game, and that his son is the GM of the Phillies, right? So I realized that. I read that before, but totally forgot about it. Mattingly's always been a good manager, right? We always thought he did a good job with the Dodgers. He just never got them over the hump. He got them to the playoffs most of the years he was there. And then with the Marlins, I mean, they kept trading everybody, so hopefully he gets a prolonged, I don't know how long he would be there, because Mattingly's got to be up there in age, definitely in his late 60s at least, but he looks like he's having fun. And, when Bryce Harper and Kyle Schwarber are hitting for the cycle and hitting 4 home runs in 2 games, there's not much, and nobody's going to beat them. How old is he? I think you looked that up.
65.
He's 65. Okay, so that's not bad. He's got, I'm still 65, so he's got some good years there. I don't know if you saw this, right? This is part of the NBA news. Micah Nori, a lot of us wouldn't know him. Apparently, he's been a great assistant coach for a long time, most recently with the Timberwolves, and he gets a shot at being the head coach with the Portland Trail Blazers. The new owner was a little bit nutty, right? Because he announces that we're looking for a coach as they are right in the middle of their first round playoff series after they fought to get in. And this guy, Tiago Splitter, who I think the Blazers went 42-36, something like that for the year. Maybe I'm off by a couple of games. I thought he did a great job. Maybe they were 42-39, something like that. But he did a great job considering all that happened in Portland. But he announces right there that, he's probably not going to be here. So he's a little bit of different type of owner. He gives him only a 1-year contract, and a 1-year contract isn't even fully guaranteed. What were your thoughts?
I feel like if you're going to give a guy a chance and a shot, especially if you're a new owner, you'd want some longevity in there. But like how much of an incentive is it for him to actually play hard, especially in the West that continues to be like, I don't know, they're not better than the Thunder and the Spurs.
No.
Probably not better than the Lakers, even if LeBron doesn't come back.
No.
They're not better than Denver. They're not better than Minnesota.
No.
Okay, so that's 5 teams right there. You're fighting for a play-in spot at that point.
Yeah.
And it just feels bad because I think my biggest worry would be this is his only shot that he gets, and then he kind of becomes like the obscure assistant head coach again.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's ridiculous. You got to at least commit 2 years fully guaranteed to the guy, at least, at the very least. Let's talk about Brendan Sorsby. And that story, Kenny, we haven't had a chance much to talk about it in the last couple of weeks. So for those that don't know, Brendan Sorsby was a pretty good college quarterback, first with Indiana and then with Cincinnati. And then he went to the transfer portal, and Texas Tech wanted to pick him up. And he's all in at Texas Tech. But then he gets put on under investigation, and his college career gets paused. Kenny, they have discovered that he bet over $90,000 on college football on his own sport. And I'm laughing, but he's a kid. Actually, he's not as young as you would think. He's 22, which is still very young, but he placed thousands of bets. And so the NCAA puts it on pause, but then he goes to court, and the court issues an injunction that he can play for Texas Tech. Everybody in that conference starts to go nuts. How can they possibly, let him play? Because he would make Texas Tech really, really good. All the other teams, there's a lot of backlash here. Sorsby hears the backlash and he says, you know what? Maybe it's not worth it. I don't want to put Texas Tech on the spot. He withdraws from college and he says, I'm going to put myself in the NFL supplemental draft. Have you heard of the NFL supplemental draft?
Yeah, it's kind of like the weird draft for the people that don't get drafted.
Right. And it happens every once in a while. Or when the NFL deems, okay, this year we'll have it because there might be a need for it. When he sent his application to it, the NFL called him back and said, "Yeah, we're not having a supplemental draft. We'll be glad for you to enter the NFL draft in 2027." Hey, which I think is doing him a little bit of a favor that he could kind of sit out a year and get some help because he obviously has a problem. So he has signed into rehab, but in the time being, he's going back to court to see if he can now play again at Texas Tech. Now, he gave up all of his college eligibility when he applied for the NFL supplemental draft, and there isn't one. What's your thoughts on this whole story?
Yeah, I read the letter that the NFL sent him and basically saying the NFL is a privilege, not a right.
Yeah.
Um, and like I've heard a lot of interesting takes on it between people saying, well, yeah, he deserves it. Other people saying, well, it's not like he beat anyone. But like there now, don't get me wrong, like people that like if we're talking about Geno Smith in a sec, if you're accused of any kind of domestic violence, you should be as far away from the NFL as possible. But at the same time, like gambling on the sport that you're playing is so risky because it ruins the integrity of the game. It's still a problem if, let's say, he was doing this with baseball, with basketball, soccer, like, but with it being the sport that he's playing against teams he's playing with and against, like, you have too much inside information and it's going to ruin the integrity of the sport. Um, there's a lot of money in college football right now. Get an endorsement, preferably not draft.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with everything you said. I don't think there's anything else to say here. I think he should sit out the year. Maybe that he thinks that, people are going to think he, forgot how to play. But I think for his life, he obviously Kenny has a gambling problem, right? Would you say that? I think that's fair, right? Thousands
Oh
of
yeah,
bets over 90,000. And he needs to get help for that problem before he thinks about sports. He needs to think about his life first. And you mentioned Geno Smith. Let's jump to him. Now, Geno Smith has been a pretty he's been in the NFL a long time now. And he's for the most part has stayed out of you haven't heard much off the field stuff with Geno Smith, right? The only thing was when, he owed, his fellow Jet player, and I'm forgetting his name. He owed him money from some gambling debt, and he punches Geno in the jaw, breaks his jaw, and then the Jet season goes downhill. The Jets have banked a lot on Geno Smith. That's the least important part of this story, though, because he's accused of domestic violence. And there's a really a video that's a little hard to watch with the lady. You don't see her on camera, but she's got both fear and anger in her voice, really loud. And there's a child involved, and she is saying that I called the cops and Gino beat my you know what. And he doesn't really say much of anything. I don't know that he does. If he says something, he mumbles, I didn't understand. And he's on the phone. He goes back inside. Next thing you see a video of the police there at his house. So he's obviously under investigation with the police as well as with the NFL. And you're right, the NFL does not tolerate the domestic violence thing. What's your take on this whole Geno Smith thing? I mean, we probably don't know where this is going to end, but what are you thinking?
Yeah, it definitely doesn't look good. And if this lady has even a shred of evidence, he's not seeing the field this year.
Yeah.
Maybe it was self-sabotage because she didn't want to play for the Jets. I'm sorry. I don't know. But
I
yeah,
yeah.
it doesn't look good. And I don't think it's just like, because, well, first of all, I think it's important to believe people when they say that they've been beat by someone. Um, but also, it kind of seems like he wasn't more annoyed that like she was like trying to do a false claim, but that she was recording
Yeah.
and that he was on the phone. And I think that's the bigger issue, and that's something that does not look good.
Yeah. Yeah, you just hope that it's not true, that you didn't resort to that. There's never any sort of reason to put your hands on a lady ever. Um, and if he did, he's going to find himself bounced out of the league for a while. And in which case, again, I said that that's not the most important thing here. In this case, that puts the Jets in a bind, especially now this late. Now we may say this late, it's only June, right? But football season comes up pretty quickly. Training camp comes up pretty quickly in another month or so, probably less than that. Um, and so, but the Jets have banked on him being their number one quarterback. So we'll have to follow that and see where that leads. Let's get into the NBA. A lot happened in the last week. Giannis finally gets traded. Let's start there. Let's just hit that because you had a great take on that. Giannis goes to Miami. Miami trades four players. Bobby Portis also goes to Miami from the Bucks, and Bobby Portis has proven to be a very very useful player. Um, but Tyler Hero is the centerpiece around the players that the Heat send to Milwaukee. You had a really interesting take. You compared it to when the Knicks got Carmelo Anthony. Take it away. What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, it's a trade that I wouldn't make if I'm an NBA GM. Because I understand getting a star. And I think trading for a star is one of the best ways that you can improve your team. I mean, look at the Knicks a couple years ago in trading for Karl Anthony Towns.
Yeah,
But I think there are only two ways that you can really do it. Number one, throw a whole bunch of draft picks at it and then like some random player to try to balance it out. Or you include a third team. And the other way is kind of a 1-for-1 or 1-for-2 type of trade, kind of like the Knicks with Karl Anthony Towns, or um, even like the LaMelo Ball trade that just happened today. Like you need something where you're not giving up a ton because like right now the Miami Heat are in a very like win now mode, and they don't have the pieces around him to really be that much into a win now mode. And I think when you trade so many assets away, they don't have draft capital to get other guys. Um, they're not really going to have a great amount of cap space to sign other guys. So now you're kind of stuck with, okay, Bam Adebayo and Giannis, which is a great front court, don't get me wrong. But like you're going to have a random player as your point guard and your
yeah,
shooting guard. And that's, I think, where things kind of get a little stuck. I compared it to Carmelo Anthony because I feel like when the Knicks made that trade, yes, it made them a better team. They probably don't win 53 games the next year. But then in the Carmelo Anthony era, they only won one series. It was fun beating the Celtics, but that's all they got. And as a result of that, it took the Knicks years to kind of recover from that because they didn't have their own draft pick. They were bad, and they had all of this cap space taken up by Amari Stoudemire and Carmelo Anthony, who Amari Stoudemire kept getting hurt. Carmelo didn't have enough help. So, like, if I was the Heat, I would have looked at that deal with Jaylen Brown and two firsts, and I would have done that in because I
yeah.
think that would have worked out a lot better.
I think those are great takes. I and the Bucks. I thought after you sent that, I said maybe the Bucks should have gotten a third team involved and sent Jalen Brown to a third team to get more draft picks for them. But you know, because I think they're going to live for the next few years in mediocrity, right? I think because some of the players they got are very good, actually, but not good enough to compete for a championship. I think they'll be in play-in city again for the next few years. I'll go to Miami though for a second. The first move that Pat Riley I remember made first couple of moves he made when he became he left the Knicks to go to Miami. Um, he got Alonzo Mourning from who was a star, great player at Charlotte at the time, and then he went out and got Tim Hardaway. He always liked, the new shiny toys. Big trade he makes, several years later for Shaq. Got him a championship, right? And of course, you draft Dwayne Wade, that helps. Jimmy Butler, big star when he gets him. So I think Pat Riley likes to chase the big stars. Pat Riley's up there in age. He's at least 80. Who knows how many more years he's gonna, continue in that job. So I think his message is listen, I got you by far the best player available, one of the best players still in the league. You guys now figure it out. That to me was what he was saying because Alonzo Mourning, ironically, is kind of his de facto GM, although Riley still runs the show. You're right. I think for Miami, I don't think they'll compete against the elite teams in the East, which meaning the Knicks and still the Celtics um, this year. But I think if they can make some other trades and see what else is out there at the trading deadline this year and then offseason next year, I think you're looking at them being a dangerous team in the next year or two. But I agree with you right now. I mean, maybe they're a 45 win team, maybe 42 win team, somewhere around there.
Well, and once it kind of like what we did in the West, like, okay, so who's better than them in the East? The Knicks are defending champs. The Celtics still have probably one of, if not the best duo in the NBA.
Yeah.
The Pacers are probably going to be back and better.
Yep. Yes.
Cleveland, they're keeping their core together, and James
Yeah.
Harden hasn't sneezed the wrong way and wants to get out of town. Um, Toronto had a pretty good season.
Yeah.
Atlanta, they were growing. Atlanta gave the Knicks the hardest time.
The
So, like,
Pistons. Yeah. And the
the
Pistons.
Pistons, yeah, I totally forgot about the Pistons. Like,
Yeah.
they were the number one seed. So, like, once again, like, I think all of those teams are probably better than the Heat. Like, that already puts them at close to the play-in. And it's not, I think if you're going to make a move like that, it has to be a move that puts you over the top. Like, I think the Celtics getting Giannis would have really fit well because it puts them over the top. They're close and it makes them the overwhelming favorites. I think if Cleveland traded Evan Mobley for Giannis, I think it would have worked as well.
Oh, man. Oh, man. So I'm so glad that he didn't go to either one of those two teams as a Knick fan.
Amen to that. As a Knicks
Um,
fan, I love.
yeah. Let's stick with the Celtics for a second. What do they do now with Jaylen Brown? Because he definitely could be the next brooding superstar if they don't sit down and talk to him. Now, Shams is saying that they're shopping him, that they're in some serious trade discussions. He doesn't know, or at least knowing Shams, he probably knows, but he wouldn't say who. That they could be in discussions to get Jaylen Brown. But what do you think happens there?
Yeah, it's looking more and more like he's probably played his last game as a Celtic. Um, like I just think with the weird comment that this past season was his favorite season, a season that they didn't win a playoff series, and he has won a championship where he was Finals MVP. It kind of is rubbing me a little weird. Um, and then like it kind of just feels like that core something needs to change. And the second apron for the NBA makes things very very hard to kind of do small tweaks and to like sign those like mid-level type of players, and especially with the Celtics where you have Jaylen Brown making $1 billion. I think he's still owed 3 years, 187 million or something like that.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, Jason Tatum. So like in order to I think take that next step, they probably need to trade Jaylen Brown. The other team that it kind of seems like they're in that like we want to win now, but we don't really have a ton of flexibility with our roster is the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
you trade you trade Mobley, you trade Donovan Mitchell, who hasn't really committed long term, for Jaylen Brown. It might be a win-win for both of those teams.
Yeah. 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 The team I was thinking of this morning because I hadn't realized that Anthony Edwards went to management and said, listen, if we don't make improvements this year, I'm going to ask to be traded. Um, and so thus you see Julius Randle gone. Strange trade to me to go to the Nets, who I would think would have went for a younger player, but maybe you need to build around a couple of veterans like him and Porter Jr. Um, but then Nas Reed for LaMelo Ball today. Essentially, there's other players involved, but essentially it's those two guys. And so now you've upgraded the backcourt, but you also have a guy who doesn't stay on the court either. Unfortunately, both the balls who made it into the NBA get hurt a lot. And, LaMelo played 72 games this past year, and that was the most he's played so far in his career. He's missed a lot of time. Now, he's a dynamic player, but can he share the ball with Anthony Edwards? I don't know. But now are they setting themselves up for something big? But Jaylen Brown is another guard. You know what I mean? So they would probably have the cap space to be able to get him, but then what? Where are you playing him at? So that was the team I thought of this morning. But I listen, Jaylen Brown, maybe he's right. He doesn't get the respect, right? Because we don't really think of him as a top 10 NBA player, but he probably is. And I think I don't think it this past year, but I've always thought Jason Tatum was a little bit better, than him. But I think Brown took that next step this past year when Tatum, ironically enough, when Tatum wasn't playing. Um, but I think that's going to be really interesting. You frowned up when I said I thought the Wizards did a couple of good things here. What's your take on the Wizards?
I don't understand it. Like, okay, so you have the number one overall pick, Devonta. He seems like I know it's a really deep class, but like he seems like the guy that is probably the most surefire guy.
Yeah, I think so.
But like he's not going to be that immediately. And then you're going to sign Trae Young to a 4-year deal where Trae Young's had some injury issues the last few years. And then you still have Anthony Davis there. Like to me, got to get rid of some of these. At least
Yeah.
Anthony Davis will find some type of market somewhere.
Oh, I think somebody will take him. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. I was thinking this. I don't know how that would fit in with the cap. Probably the Knicks wouldn't get there. But if they don't bring back Mitchell Robinson, have Anthony Davis 15, 20 minutes a night. You know what I mean? I
That would work because like also like Mitchell Robinson isn't exactly the healthiest of guys either. So
no, and he's become, listen, we love Mitch, right? Because he's been 8 years was with the team. But he,
yeah,
he has become a little bit of a liability with the foul shooting. That's not going to get better. I'm sorry.
nah,
He's done that well, a lot of times. Like Shaq, it never got better. Um, and so I don't know. I was just throwing that out there. I was thinking about that this morning with Anthony Davis. And I do agree. I think that if the Wizards are going to get serious about contending, build it around, the player they just got and Young, and I would send Davis packing and get at least another draft pick for him or something like that. Um, One name that we haven't heard, and we'll just talk about the Knicks briefly, and we'll jump into baseball. One name we haven't heard, which I'm surprised that we haven't, is John Morant. I mean, and the Grizzlies look like they're making some moves here. I like what they did in the draft. Um, I'm not sure that Isaiah Stewart, who's a little bit, I didn't realize he's only 25 years old. Seems like he's been in the league forever. I think because he has fights like every year. But um, the Grizzlies seem like, are they gonna move Ja, or do you think they're gonna keep him? You haven't heard his name at all. What are your thoughts there?
yeah, it kind of feels like they're just like I don't know what we're gonna do with you, but I guess we'll keep you around for now.
Yeah, yeah.
So I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know how the salaries would fit either there, but Jaylen Brown to Memphis, John Morant to the Celtics. You probably would need a third team in that, um, but I also Boston is probably also not a city I would want John Morant playing in. So I don't know. I think that's going to be kind of interesting. Any thoughts on the Knicks? I mean, the more talk I could tell you, I couldn't tell you anything about the guys they drafted. I'm sorry. I just, a lot of the guys in the first like 10, 12, because they were mostly on big teams like North Carolina, Duke, Kansas. I saw those guys. So I think all of them are really good. There was some deep talent in this year's draft. But once you got to the second round, I'm like, I have no idea. But the Knicks have three guys, right, that are free agents, which is Mitchell Robinson, Jordan Clarkson, and Landry Shamet. That and we'd love to bring back all three of them, but I think if we do, that brings us into that next apron, right? That Dolan said we're not doing that. And so just early here, but what are you thinking with the Knicks and just these three free agents? Because they do have to change something, right? Within their team, I would think.
Yeah, especially when you look at the other teams. By the way, a straight up Ja Morant for Jaylen Brown trade would work,
Wow.
according to NBA Trade Machine. So
Yeah. The only thing that would keep me from doing that if I'm the Celtics is John Morant, and how would he be in a he's not good in a and Memphis isn't a small city by any means, but it's a small city compared to Boston or New York or LA or Chicago or somewhere like that. So that'd be
yeah,
the
he needs to go to like Salt Lake City or something
yeah.
like that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I think they do need to do something. Um, I don't know any of these guys. This was like the least into a draft I've ever been, which
Yeah.
is funny because like it also kind of snuck up on me. I was like, oh yeah, it's the draft tonight.
Yeah.
But, but yeah, like definitely, I'm okay with bringing everyone back, but at the same time, you do need to improve somewhere. I think Mitchell Robinson has been good, but like you said, the hack of Mitch is something that kind of sometimes just really took them out of their rhythm. Um, I'm down for bringing everyone back for the right price. I mean, Dolan said very openly that they're not going over the second apron. I would
Yeah.
assume Shamit's probably gone. Um, I think Mitch, it depends on the price. Jordan Clarkson,
Well,
we'll see.
he was
He's
good
just
at
kind of there.
Spurs. Yeah, he was good at Spurs, but he got his championship. I think that's the second one though. I think he had one with the Cavs. Wasn't he on that Cavs team in 2016? I don't know. But
Nah,
no, he wasn't. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Oh, he got his title. I think he's like 34, 35. I liked him though. I thought he had some clutch moments, for the Knicks at times. He's certainly not shy about shooting. All right. Hey, I think that's it on basketball. Let's jump into baseball. Let me pull up your thing. Well, actually, before I pull up the screen, you want to give me a couple of minutes on the Mets?
go for it.
Yeah. So 53 and 29 is what I think the Mets would have to go from this point to get into the playoffs. I'm saying the magic number is probably 87 games. Maybe it's 85 or 84. If it's 87, they got to go 53 and 29. Right now they have 34 wins and they are 12 games now under 500. Um, Either 11 or 12. I'd have to look. You probably know that instead. Kenny, I think now we've seen the players long enough, and I'm wearing my Met shirt usually when they are going bad, as I want to show support more for the team. But yesterday you probably saw a highlight of this. They started a chant in the ninth inning yesterday. Pete Alonso, and that stadium is going to become a ghost town, very very early. I mean it's only June 25th. And to think that they're out of it on June 25th is really horrible. And so I started to think about, the offseason moves. There's nothing we could do about the guys that left now, right? But the guys that are here, and this is where, I'd like to get, a little measurement on what Stearns did. And I'm not like a lot of Met fans who don't like David Stearns. I think David Stearns has a really good track record. I do think he's had a tough time adjusting to how do I spend this money? I think if the Mets had the same money as the Brewers, he probably would be a little bit better at the scouting and everything like that. Because the Brewers, I'm sure you're going to go through this. You blink. I mean, they're 20 games over 500, one of the best teams in baseball. And he built most of that team, right? But the guys he brought in, let me talk about David Peterson first. They traded him. I want to take back what I texted you. I don't think this is the start of the purge because I think this was just Edward Cabrera got hurt. It got hurt ironically against the Mets. I was watching that play. I don't know what he did, but he looked like he tore his hamstring or something. I guarantee you he's going to be out for a long time, if not for the rest of the season. So I think the Cubs were like, hey, we're here in New York. David Peterson, they're soured on him. He's no risk because he's a free agent at the end of the year. And I think the Cubs said, if you're willing to get rid of him, we'll take him off your hands. And watch now, he's going to win like 10 games in a row with the Cubs. He's going to figure it out. So I think it was more the Cubs had a need there, and he probably was the first inexpensive option that came to mind. So, but here's the thing, Ken. The Mets have now lost five in a row, and it's not that they've lost five in a row; it's how they've lost five in a row. Their starters have been terrible, and the starters were terrible a little bit before this. Their starters are next to last in the major leagues, which is really hard to believe when you think about the names they have in the starting rotation. But in the last five games, they gave up 50 runs. That's 10 runs a game. And it is no team. The Dodgers aren't gonna will lose five in a row if you're allowing the other team to score 10 runs. It's the Phillies high-powered offense, but it's also the Cubs not so much. The Cubs were hitting the balls all over the place, particularly Dansby Swanson. I should have said that he was batting only 187, and he gets, I don't know, I think he had 12 runs batted in the doubleheader yesterday because he had another big hit like in the second game. Their defense, I thought that was going to be the focus, but he's got so many guys in the infield playing out of place. And Semien makes two errors yesterday, which was stunning because he's been pretty good in the field. Um, but first base, third base, not so much, man. It just came to light because they had six errors in that second game, but their defense overall hasn't been all that great. Their relief pitching has been excellent. Second in baseball, right? Best bullpen. But now let's measure the guys that he got real quick. Has anybody seen Jorge Polanco? Where the heck is he? I mean, and there's no updates. There's no updates.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, he's there might be a little bit of a speed up because you saw the news that happened recently, right?
No.
Marcus Simeon's heading to the IL.
Oh, Marcus Semien. Yeah, I just saw that today. Yeah. Yeah. A guy who never gets hurt, by the way, and now he's hurt. The Mets.
Yeah,
So you think Polanco will come up a little quicker? I don't know.
maybe.
Yeah, maybe. Luis Robert. I mean, he had a good first week and he's been a total bust. We haven't seen him either, and we have no idea when he's playing again. I mean, we didn't do physicals on these guys because Robert Jr. It's a bad back. It wasn't where he hurt it on a play. It's just he's got some chronic back issue. Um, Freddie Peralta is probably the one that surprises me the most because even when he's pitched well, he's just been okay. He's 5-6 with a 4.83 ERA. The guy could have won the Cy Young the last couple of years, and that has really surprised me. Devin Williams is 3-2, 4.62. Has he been Edwin Diaz? Of course not, but he's been serviceable. He gave up a couple of runs yesterday, but they brought him in, and the game was already, I think it was 8-5 when they brought him in. They were losing, so he gave up the last two runs. Luke Weaver, on the other hand, has been spectacular. Lights out every time he's in there. The aforementioned Marcus Semien batting 214, 9 homers and 29 RBIs. And he's not clutch. He's not. He comes up with guys on base all the time, and he either pops up or. Now, the guy who has stepped up and was turned it completely around is Bo Bichette. Bo Bichette's batting now up to 250. He was batting like 209 maybe 3 weeks ago, and he's just been tearing it up lately. He looks like himself. In the field, not so much. I mean, the guy's a shortstop, and I don't know. He had to know he would be playing third base when he signed the contract here, with Lindor. So bright spots have been AJ Ewing, Carson Bench, extreme bright spots. Juan Soto has some back issues right now. They say it's day to day, and he's been great, when he's played. But Kenny, this is very, very disheartening because it's such a mismatch of players. You've got players who are doing well, right? Like Ben, Ewing, Soto, and now Bichette. And then you've got players now who's had a million chances, and there's still question marks. Brett Beatty, Mark Vientos, both of them are batting like 220. Vientos always hits a big home run, though, for some reason. And then you got a guy like, Francisco Alvarez. who looks like he's turning a corner. Had a couple of home runs the last couple of days, but then he strikes out in a big spot. Yesterday when the game was still kind of on the line. So I never lose hope, right? But I will tell you this: it is hard for me to see where the turnaround is coming with this team, especially because of the starting pitching being so bad. What say you? I know you haven't watched obviously as many games the Mets as I have, but I know you watched like Sunday night and a few others. What are you thinking?
Yeah, well, first of all, I think the trade for Freddie Peralta seems kind of like, to me, that's the most baffling because he's been excellent the last 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
And and it seemed inevitable that he would kind of be like the stopper, the ace that you need. But as case in point, the Mets have now had 3 different 5 game losing streaks this year. And I mean, 5 man rotation, that means that there isn't that guy that's fully stepping up.
Yeah.
Um, it was an odd team the way it was put together to start with, which, like, we had said that between Polanco, Bichette playing out of position. Um, Guys in the outfield were like, oh, I don't know if that fits, but I think I don't know. I think you need to shake something big up, and I don't know. It might make sense, it might not. Do you consider trading Francisco Lindor? Um, I know shortstop is such a hard, like, he's still a top 5 shortstop. He's an
Oh
excellent
yeah.
player.
Yeah.
Um, but it kind of feels like the Soto Lindor relationship is never going to work. But also, you don't necessarily need it to work. If everyone's winning, then no one has an issue with it. But I don't know. I feel like you kind of need to shake something up. Stearns isn't going anywhere. I think the guy that's probably next on the shopping block has got to be Mendoza.
Yeah.
At this point, they're probably not firing him until at least the end of the year, if not the end of next year. But it's just it's just really interesting.
Let's stay on Lindor for a second. I'm glad you brought that up. Tiki Barber had quite a take on that. He said he felt like when the Mets didn't make him the captain, last year, that something got lost there, that he hasn't been the same, you know, big time team leader like he was before. And they could say all they want. There's something not right about the relationship with him and Juan Soto, aside from the fact that they're just different dudes, right? Because Soto's not going to be out there pregame, signing a bunch of autographs. Lindor will be. Soto is all about business. I come to the park. I'm going to do my thing. So not interested in being a leader. Although it seems like the younger players do flock around him, Carson Benj and a few others. Um, and he felt the same way you did, that he doesn't think long term that those two will work long term. And he said almost the same exact thing you said, right? That it's highlighted right now because they're not playing good, you know, but they haven't played good since this time last year, so it's been a whole year. I know it's different players, but at the core is Soto and Lindor. So the answer to your question, there's very few teams that can take on Francisco Lindor's contract. Soto's not going anywhere, obviously, right? But I guess this is year 6 with the Mets, maybe. So maybe he has like 4 more years left. Um, would some teams consider taking? He's making a lot of money, 350 million, I think was the original contract. It would have to be, and we talked about this in the offseason. I think it would have to be a trade like not necessarily this guy, but it would have to be like him for, Fernando Tatis, right? Where the salaries pretty much match up and you're getting a star for a star, you know. But even Tatis is having an off year, this year, as we saw, he hit his first home run like what, a couple of weeks ago. But it would have to be something like that, and you'd have to see a team that can absorb the salary. The Mets could take some of the salary, right? But the Mets are about to, I think, in the next week or so. This is just a prediction. I don't know this for a fact. are probably going to DFA Kodai Senga. He's the guy I didn't mention. I don't know what's happened to him, but he has been terrible for the last 2 years, and I mean, you can't give up 7 runs in just 2 innings or 3 innings and expect to win with the way this offense has struggled, to get big hits. And he's done this time. His ERA is over 10.80, almost 11 ERA. And I don't know if he got hurt and he just lost something. His velocity seemed okay, but the Ghost Fork, Kenny, you remember them putting up the signs of the Ghost Fork? He'd have 10, 11, 12 strikeouts a game. I don't know what happened to him. The Mets are going to eat the rest of that salary. They can't keep running him out there. Are you going to put him in the bullpen? It's like, hey, bullpen meaning that he'll come in like the second inning. They'll put an opener and then he'll come in the second or third inning. I don't think that's going to make a difference. It didn't make a difference with Peterson, you know. So I think, I'm going to pull up your chart and then I'm going to keep quiet. Do you consider Lindor? I think you have to consider it, but you'd have to probably do it really quietly. Otherwise, because Lindor strikes me as kind of a sensitive guy, although he doesn't really show it much. I think if he got wind that the Mets were calling teams about him, I think that would really impact him more than it would some other players. Um, but looking at your list right now, there's very few teams that, because he's not a rental. If he was a rental, like if he's in the last year of his contract, all the teams that you have as contenders would be lining up, because you'd want a guy like that. But um, you have 4 years left. It narrows it down, right? The Braves, maybe, would they ever trade him to the Braves? Probably not. Would they ever trade him to the Yankees? Probably. The Yankees always made sense, right? But probably not there. Do the Dodgers need him? Dodgers will probably take him just because they collect superstars. Um, so anyway, it's bleak right now. I'll say that as the most positive, optimistic Met fan on the planet. It's bleak right now because I just haven't seen any sustained consistency from this team, and we're what, a game away from being at the halfway mark. So I think that's a pretty good, gauge. Now, last thing I'll say, and I'll keep quiet, I promise. You and I were watching a Sunday night game in 2007. You remember this? I don't remember who the Mets were playing. Maybe they were playing the Phillies. And Joe Morgan, John Miller, and Joe Morgan wasn't impressed. The Mets were well in first place. They were like 11 games up in first place. Remember that? And he
Yeah.
said, Joe Morgan, it was a game right before the All-Star break. And Joe Morgan said, there's something about this Met team that I'm not sold on. And he said, if you can build an 11-game lead in one half, you can lose an 11-game lead in a half. And sure enough, that year they lost it. So can they build and get into the playoffs, especially with the extra spot now? Yeah, it's possible. I just don't see it in this team just yet. I'd have to see they got to get back to 500 for me first to see that. 500 is a long way away now. 500 is a good 2-3 weeks away. So we'll see. We'll see. All right, but take it away. I'll keep quiet. You can talk about that Rafael Devers thing as you have the Giants in your bottom tier there.
Yeah, I'll add one quick note on the Mets too. Even at 500, you have so many teams ahead of you.
Yeah.
It's so hard to kind of get that momentum. But yeah, fire sale time. Yankees play the Red Sox this weekend. It'll be fun to watch. But man, the Red Sox, I don't even know what their issue is. And I don't know how they move forward. But we'll see. I
Yeah.
mean, continue to sell off people. Trade Roman Anthony out of the division, please. That would be excellent.
They're not
Um,
trading. Come
no,
on.
they're probably not.
Yeah.
Um, the rest of these teams, they got to look at who's not going to be a part of the future. Um, and the Giants, to me, is the most interesting because they are an absolute train wreck. I know they had their stuff with like the Pride Night and Bible stuff, and
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I there's a time and a space. This is not the right time or space for it. All I'll say is this: there's a lot bigger problems with this team than what the guys are putting on their hats.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Buster Posey, I don't know what the heck he's doing. Um, Tony Vitello doesn't seem like he has a good grasp on leading that group. But it all starts with Rafi Devers, who as you might have seen on Sunday, was they were down by one. He earns a walk, gets to first base, and is waving his hand, no, 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 don't take me out because they're bringing in a pinch runner. Do you know how many stolen base attempts he's had as a San Francisco Giant?
Devers, I don't think any.
Zero. In
Yeah.
a year and change. He's had zero stolen base attempts. The guy that they brought in, a minor league guy in 44 games, had 27 stolen bases in double A.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
like, he's known for speed, and you're down by one, and getting a runner from first to second changes the math on everything. And he's not even going to try. It's not like he, like, gets caught a couple. He hasn't attempted a stolen base. Um,
I don't think I've ever
he,
seen anything like that. I,
nah.
I've been watching baseball for a long time. I don't think I ever saw a guy refuse to come out for a pinch runner.
And he had said that the reason was he thought that he was being pulled because he was complaining about his hamstring. And he was like, no, like I'm good. But no, it's the situation. If that was Ryan McMahon, if that was Ben Rice, Aaron Boone would also still pull him for Jose Caballero. Because, like, you need the speed, you need to get that extra base. And also, if you're on second base, you need to be able to score easily in a single. But the thing that surprises me, and it's the thing that kind of shows a little bit of his character, is he's like, I don't talk to the media because you guys always blow things out of proportion. Okay, here's what we saw, not anything that the media reported. Him yelling at this poor minor league guy that's coming up and like, I'm supposed to pitch run for you.
Yeah.
But then after he gets off of first base, screaming into his helmet, giving a big old pouty face. And then as his manager is kind of coming up to him to give him a slap on the butt, he's doing one of these
It
things.
moves out of the
That's
way.
not the media.
Yeah.
That's him acting like a baby. So
Yeah.
fire sale. But also like you're stuck with him. Good
Yeah.
luck in trying to trade him right now.
I'm, I'm forgetting, I'll tell you this real quick. I'm forgetting which baseball guy, but it was a baseball guy we trust, suggests Willie Adames for Marcus Semien would be a move that would make sense. Uh, I'm not all that sold on Adames anymore either. He strikes out a lot, and he doesn't seem to hit me. I know he had over 30 home runs the last couple of years, but and he's a lot younger than Semien, but I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't know if it's worth it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, it's kind of like a my problem for your problem. Like Willie Adames is good, but also like I don't know if the Giants would want to take on all of the. I don't
No,
know if they'd want to do that.
Mets would have to pay some. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know, but speaking of trades, though, trade deadline watch. These seven teams, you got to watch what they're doing because like if they continue on the trajectory, they might be hardcore buyers. If they start to slip a little bit, they might be sellers. Obviously, the Cardinals have been really good. Um, if I didn't have the name of AL contenders by default in the next tier, they'd probably be there. Arizona's going to be a weird team because they seem like a pretty good third place team, but their division is really, really tough. So I don't know what they're going to do. Pittsburgh might stay pat. They might add a piece or two, but they might just say this is a year of development. Detroit's obviously going to be the one that people talked about because of Tarek Skubal, which I'll give this fact now. Paul Goldschmidt hit 2 home runs against Tarek Skubal. You know the
Who?
last player to do that?
Who?
Paul Goldschmidt back in 2021.
Wow. Wow.
So go figure. Or 2022, I think. Either way. Nationals too, Marlins, they're kind of in like that. I don't know if they're good. I don't know if they're bad yet. But trade deadline's a little later this year, August 3rd. So we'll kind of see. Same with Cincinnati. AL contenders by default. These six teams have a sub 500 record, but the AL is so bad that they're contenders by default. Like the A's, they're in second place, 3 games below 500. The Astros have gotten hot, scary. Um, Texas hasn't really hit their stride fully yet. Toronto's played better recently. Same with the Orioles. The team with the best record, I believe, in the month of June is the Minnesota Twins. I'd have to double check that, but they have they've kind of turned it around. But like any of these teams, if they're in the World Series, we'd be a little bit surprised based on their first half this year. Um, what a difference a week makes, a few weeks make, because I haven't done this in the last one I did was June 4th, so about 3 weeks or so. The White Sox, they were looking really bad. They've been pretty steady.
Yeah.
They could be an actual contender this year. Um, Fun fact on the White Sox, once again related to the Yankees. The Yankees have played every American League team in the playoffs except for the White Sox. Um, we might see that change this year, which would be very interesting.
Yeah.
Um, you got the Guardians too. Like, I don't really know how to gauge this team yet, but they're in first place. They're doing it with pitching. They're doing it without Jose Ramirez, and they keep getting other injuries too. So I don't know what else to say about them. Padres have struggled a little bit, but they've kind of turned it around a bit. Same with the Phillies have been on fire. Seattle's one of three teams with a positive run differential in the American League. I'll talk more about that later. The Cubs also. The Cubs looked like they were struggling. They seem to have turned a corner a little bit.
Yeah.
You helped them wake up Dansby Swanson, who
Oh,
had like 21 RBIs in that series, something like that. I don't know. Top five. I think it's hard to argue against the Dodgers as the top team in baseball right now. Um, I know the Braves were for most of the year, but the Dodgers have really turned it on. Shohei Ohtani keeps doing his thing, and they're only going to get healthier, which is kind of scary. Um, the Yankees. The Yankees have 113, a plus 113 run differential.
wow.
Uh, the Rays have a plus 13 run differential. Seattle plus 8, I believe it is. So that might be reversed.
Wow.
Everybody else has a negative run differential. Right now, like if we're really looking at tiers, maybe this should be a top four: Dodgers, Yankees, Braves, Brewers, and then it's kind of everybody else. Um, I think the biggest question with the Yankees is they need to really fortify the bullpen, but I don't know where that trade is. But that might kind of reveal itself within the next several weeks. We'll kind of see. Um, the Braves, I feel like they're, I don't know what the move is, but I feel like the Braves are going to make a kind of a big splash. I feel like they kind of feel like this might be their year. I don't know. That's
Yeah.
just a guess.
Yeah.
Um, the Brewers also, I wish that they would do something where they would actually spend some money. I feel like that would be fun. Not fun for the Rays, but also if I wasn't a Yankees fan, I think that would be fun for them too. But
Yeah. All right. Great job on these. I don't have any question at all. Um, Boy, the Braves are good. The Mets took 2 out of 3 from the Braves, but I think they just caught them at a off time. All 5 of those teams that you have in the top tier are good. I know the Rays cooled off a little, but all those teams are really good. Yeah, trading deadline. I know it's a few days later, but it's going to sneak up on some teams, and it'll be interesting which teams, go out of their way to try to acquire some talent so that they can get into the playoffs. I think it'll be a flurry of moves, but some of these teams will be interesting to see what they do. All right, a lot of basketball, a lot of baseball. I think we've hit everything. You ready for some inspiration?
let's do it.
So for me, it is Lionel Messi. It has nothing to do with faith, although I was looking up that he is a man of faith, but I didn't really see anything specific. Um, the World Cup is like the biggest sports thing happening. It's funny. I don't really know hardly anything about soccer, and I know your son is into it, and I mean it is just World Cup fever here. Although no one is expecting the U.S. to get too far, but Lionel Messi at 39 years old became the all-time leading goal scorer in World Cup history. And I found it just amazing. He's won the World Cup once. He's with Argentina. He's won the World Cup once, and that was in 2022. And we listened to, I'm sure you listened to it also when the announcer was crying, Argentina, Argentina, and he was just weeping. So it's a big deal to countries. The folks from Norway took over City Field yesterday. The traffic here is crazy, even though the game is in New Jersey. So it's a big deal. But Lionel Messi seems to be bigger than life. He seems to stand above like everything, whether it's the World Cup, whether it's the soccer league that he plays in with Miami. His first goal in World Cup competition was on June 16th, 2006, 20 years
Wow.
ago. He wasn't even 19 years old yet. And here he is at 39 years old. And most everybody says that he's still the best player in the world at 39 years old. As much as they run up and down that field, man, he's got to be in tremendous shape. So, and this guy, he's always stayed out of trouble. He seems to be such a good role model for people. Gives he's a billionaire, by the way, because he makes more off field endorsements, than he does on the field. But the guy definitely is a special guy who I didn't really know much about until the last month or so as this tournament has started. So Lionel Messi, 39 years old, inspiration for this week.
Yeah, shout out to Messi. I think US has been fun in group play because they've actually played well, but also it's like, well, this has been fun, but I don't know if anything else is happening.
Yeah,
But
no, it has to be a miracle.
um
Yeah,
I want to point out I want to shout out Jalen Brunson with inspiration this week. Um really because of two different things. So he um like kind of two separate stories, but they're kind of related. Well, I'll start with the first one. At the parade, I don't remember the context, but he said, when you prove people wrong, you don't have to tell them anything. And I
yeah,
think he obviously used different words, but we're not going to use these here. Um, but I think just that mentality of like, I mean, this guy has overcome every single obstacle that people keep putting in front of him, whether it's his size. Becky Hammond has finally apologized. Whether it's whether or not he can be a number one option. And he could be like, I'm that dude. But in the end, he's like, oh, we don't have to say anything. They already know it. Um, but the second one, this is the one that kind of sticks out to me a little bit more. Um, so after game four, the epic OG tip, he was doing the press conference and starts it out. Now, granted, this is probably the biggest win of his life to this point. He starts it out by saying, just shout out to a young man that had lost his life. He was a Make a Wish kid that had lost his life to a childhood illness. I don't know who it was. Um, and he said like this kid was really cool because like the wish thingy was like giving him a video, like sending him a video. He's like, you know what? Something's really prompting me to just like call him up and talk to him. So we like had this guy on FaceTime and talked to him for he said like a couple hours. He said really cool kid and it was really sad that he had passed away. And I think it kind of just shows the character of a guy like Jalen Brunson. And I think like yes, we're excited because of what he brings on the field, but I think his character off the field really speaks a lot about who he is. So Jalen Brunson, we're excited for 2027 defending NBA champion New York Knicks. So
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's amazing. I didn't know about that second story, but I remember what he said I couldn't see the parade that day, so I watched a lot of clips from it. Amazing. Boy, oh boy, it's going to be so exciting. Um, and it'll be interesting to see the perspective that they put on Jalen Brunson in this next year. Does he? I mean, for the last couple of years, he's gone to foul line. What MVP, but he's never gotten any of these MVP votes. Will
oh
they?
he'll get some this year.
I think so. I think so.
Um, the
Yeah.
other this is not related to it at all, but you know who has the rights for opening night for the NBA?
Who has the what?
Who has like the television rights, the broadcasting rights?
Oh no, I don't.
It's NBC. So
Oh,
Reggie Miller will sit there as the banner goes up in the rafters.
so it's
So
gonna
that'll
be
be fun.
who's it gonna be? Nixon who?
I don't know. They haven't announced that yet, but
Yeah,
I'm assuming because that's usually the pattern is it'll be like
yeah,
the defending champion at home.
yeah. It's interesting. This is the last thing I'll say. We can sign off. A different sport, but you mentioned NBC. They've really taken a different tact on Sunday Night Baseball. So obviously, I watched most of the game this past Sunday night with the Mets and Phils, and it was John Kruk and John Franco, and Anthony Rizzo. I guess he sits kind of down. If there's a booth and it's not big enough, he sits like down like near the stands, right? And he's chiming in, and he's pretty polished. He's very good. But I got to tell you, Kenny, there's not a ton of analysts analyzing going on. It's more they're telling stories. They're kind of schmoozing with each other. Uh, at one point, they talked about the 1990 fight with the Mets and the Phillies, and John Kruk trying to hold back down Strawberry, and he couldn't. Um, I found it really interesting, because I hadn't seen too many. I've seen bits and pieces here of the Sunday night games. Jason Benetti is outstanding. He's an outstanding play-by-play guy, but he's like a host. They've taken a total different tact on it where they've gone more to, and these are kind of current players, right? If John Kruk and Franco have both been retired maybe 20 years, but if you're of your age, you remember them, or you probably more remember Kruk as Sunday Night Baseball on on
Yeah.
ESPN. So I thought it was very interesting where they're doing the different guys every week. And this week is Will Middlebrooks, who has built quite a media career for himself since, he retired, and Roger Clemens, which is going to be very, very, to me, interesting. And I know you'll be watching it, so I'll try to watch some of it, but we got to talk about how they were. I mean, Roger Clemens was persona non grata, but I find it interesting that that's what Fox probably was trying to accomplish by putting Derek Jeter and David Ortiz in the booth together for Yankees Red Sox. It didn't come to fruition because the game got rained out, but I can't imagine they won't try that again. But I guess you can get the hardcore analysts anywhere else, right? But it looked like NBC's trying to build a little bit of a different niche for Sunday Night Baseball, which surprised me. I didn't think NBC would do that. I thought they were, the tradition is back, and they would go back. And Bob Costas is great in the role they have him on in the pregame, and he chimes in every, probably a couple of times during the game with, kind of putting historical perspectives on stuff. So I enjoyed it. I actually, even though the Mets played terrible that night, but I enjoyed the banter.
Yeah.
So
Sounds fun.
Yeah, you got to give a review next week.
Yeah.
Of your boy Roger Clemens. So, Middlebrooks will probably be very good, but Clemens, I'm anxious to see. All right, lots to talk about next week. Go ahead and take us home, sir.
All right. This is Kenny Squared N
Kenny.
with Sports on the Positive Tip. We'll see you guys next time.